Story 1, Midnight Obstruction, a strange encounter on the Homeward Drive. A while back, after a particularly long day at work in the city, I found myself on the familiar drive home to the suburbs. My house was a decent distance from the city, so I faced an hour's drive each night after getting off work at 10 p.m. The route was mostly empty roads once I left the city, which made the journey tolerable if time-consuming. On this particular night, I was a little more tired than usual. For no apparent reason, it was just one of those days. As I approached my house, about half an hour away, I drove along one of the quieter single-lane highways. By the faint glow of street lights, I noticed an obstruction in the road ahead. My eyes snapped open and I gently braked. As I approached, the fog lifted to reveal a tree sprawled across the road. Perplexed, I surveyed the scene. There hadn't been any storms or high winds recently, and the tree certainly hadn't been there in the morning. Leaving the car running but in park, I got out to investigate. A careful look around revealed no other fallen trees or signs of damage. The trees seemed to extend from both edges of the adjacent forest, blocking any passage. The oddity of the situation began to dawn on me, and annoyance crept in. The nearest alternative route was 15 minutes back, adding at least an hour to my already long journey. Considering whether to call for help, I stood in the road next to the tree. Suddenly a light flickered on from the other side, illuminating the branches and leaves. It wasn't a car approaching. The vehicle must have been there all the time and only now decided to switch on its lights. Struggling to peer through the branches, I heard a door open and close, followed by approaching footsteps on the other side of the tree. "Hello," I called, hoping to break the tension. The answer was a mumbled something, not directed at me, but more of an internal murmur. Perhaps the person was as frustrated as I was by the blocked road. The branches rustled and a man with a short beard and buzz cut, dressed in a thick jacket, appeared on my side of the road. He walked towards me without acknowledging my presence. Uneasy, I moved back towards my car. The man quickened his pace, almost breaking into a light jog. As I closed the car door, he approached the window, his expression blank and devoid of any friendliness. He knocked on the window without a word, not a smile on his face. Nervously, I asked, "What do you need?" The man continued to mumble to himself, maintaining eye contact and knocking relentlessly on the window. Becoming increasingly aggressive, he started pounding on the window with his fist. In a panic, I put the car into reverse and was backing out when I heard a thud, probably the door latch being ripped from his hands. Realizing the danger, I spun the car around and drove off, my mind focused solely on escaping. I didn't check my mirrors to see what the man was doing. When I reached the bypass, I pulled over and reported the bizarre encounter. Unsurprisingly, when the authorities arrived, both the man and his car were nowhere to be found. I later learned that the fallen tree had been deliberately felled, raising suspicions of malicious intent. The incident even made the news, but no further information emerged. In the months since, I've had no further strange incidents on this stretch of road. But every night when I drive home from work, I remain vigilant, unable to shake the memory of that disturbing encounter. Story 2: Midnight Ambush on the Unfinished Road. As a part-time Uber Eats driver juggling college classes, I found myself on a strange delivery one night. It was around 11 p.m., and with no classes until late afternoon the next day, I decided to take the opportunity to work late into the night. A rare grocery order took me to a 7-Eleven with a destination about 15 minutes away through unfamiliar neighborhoods to the edge of the woods. Following the directions, I ended up at the end of a gravel road surrounded by safety cones and construction materials. There were no street lights in the area, creating an eerie atmosphere. Despite the uncertainty, I proceeded cautiously, turning on my headlights to navigate through the darkness. The map indicated that the delivery was down this road, but all I could see were dimly lit construction sites. Eventually, I came to what appeared to be the end of the road, or rather a path. Checking the map again, it insisted that the address was further down this sketchy path. I peered ahead and, adjusting to the darkness, noticed a structure resembling a house at the end. Something was wrong, though. Looking around, I saw more houses, barely visible in the limited light. It dawned on me that this was probably a community of newly built houses, still under construction. Thinking that the house on my GPS might be one of the first to be completed, I proceeded cautiously, turning into an almost empty cul-de-sac with a lone house. On closer inspection, it was clear that the house wasn't fully finished, although the front appeared to be close to completion. Despite the confusion, my task was simple: deliver the groceries and move on. I parked, got out with the bags, and approached the front door. The whole area was silent and dark, creating an unsettling atmosphere. After knocking, I turned to leave but caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision near the trees. Pausing, I stared into the darkness, but whatever it was had stopped moving. Feeling uneasy, I hurried back to my car. As I started the engine, the headlights revealed a man standing where I had seen the movement. He was staring intently in my direction, sending a shiver down my spine. Without fully registering the road, I began to back up, only to feel a series of bumps. Panic set in as I realized that something had caused my car to sway violently. With adrenaline pumping, I accelerated onto the gravel road and into the normal neighborhood. It turned out that I had several flat tires. Having found a safe place, I called the police. Their investigation revealed that both the address and the Uber Eats account were fake disposable. They also discovered large sharpened metal objects on the road, strategically placed to impede my progress. The intentions of those who set this trap remained unclear. Whether it was an attempted robbery or something more sinister, I was grateful I didn't have to find out firsthand. Story 3: Midnight Pursuit Through the Fields. It was around 3 a.m. as I headed home after a long work meeting. This annual event, 8 hours away from where I worked, was always late. Driving through the state at that hour proved tedious, with vast stretches of farmland outside the city. The monotonous fields of crops seemed endless, providing a dull backdrop as I navigated the empty roads. The simplicity of the route allowed me to distance myself and concentrate solely on the straight road ahead. Unexpectedly, a huge gap in the crops to the right caught my attention. A car was wedged deep in the field, as if it had gone off the road uncontrollably. Although an unusual sight, it didn't seem particularly dangerous or significant enough to warrant immediate assistance. Given the telephone service available in the area, I assumed they could call for help if necessary. The car also appeared to be abandoned, adding to the mystery. Continuing my journey, headlights appeared ahead a few minutes later. As I quickly closed the distance, the slow-moving vehicle ahead forced me to swerve into the other lane to overtake it. Despite the 80 miles per hour speed limit, the car was crawling along at no more than 25 miles per hour, creating a dangerous situation. After passing, the vehicle accelerated and came up behind me. I initially dismissed the driver as an impatient road user, but to my surprise, he moved into the oncoming lane, aligning his car with mine. Glancing over, I saw a middle-aged man with long hair and a disheveled beard. Strangely, he wore a slight grin rather than an angry expression. Uneasiness set in as the car accelerated, eventually pulling out in front of me, slamming on its brakes and blocking both lanes. Stunned, I stopped about 15 feet from the stopped car. The man, now with a hood over his head and brandishing a gun, wasted no time. He approached with clear intent. Panic set in and, with no time to reverse, I stepped on the accelerator and veered off the road into a field of crops. For a moment my car refused to respond, inching forward despite the accelerator being fully depressed. Fear rose as I imagined the fate of the earlier car stuck in the crop. Suddenly traction returned and I swerved back onto the road, hearing a distant gunshot as I sped away. I immediately dialed 911, giving details of the incident and mentioning the stranded car. The mystery man was never found by the police, who found the other car empty and abandoned. The driver seemed to have vanished, mirroring a scenario that could have happened to me if I hadn't escaped the harrowing encounter.